the weird uncle that has to come to family gatherings.
Yeah, yeah. There's another one.
There's lots.
There's so many good lines from all of them. We were just
We could
roasting
spend the
Elon Musk
entire
for
hour
like
just
an hour.
roasting. This is no longer video games. This is the
Yeah,
roast
look,
of
I'll
Elon
just leave
Musk.
this in. I'll just leave this in. This is how the first episode of Video Gem starts. Hello! And welcome to Video Gems. This is the podcast where I interview video essayists and game designers and learn about them as people, their favorite art, their creative process, and what they're working on, with special guest hosts and special guests. With me today, I have Harry Video Games Are Bad and Aranock, my guest hosts slash guests for today's episode. Introduce yourselves, please, Harry.
Hello, I am Harry, and I run the channel Video Games Are Bad, where I talk about how video games are good.
Well, we're gonna talk about
Exclusively. We'll talk about our most
Nothing
recent video.
else.
'Cause there's some-
we'll talk about this later. Harry delved into some uncharted territory recently, but
and
Aranock.
actually said a game was bad. Hi, I'm Aranock. I make art pieces, you could call it, video essays. And I often talk a lot about queer perspectives in art and the political meaning of art and general media analysis stuff. And I try to have nuanced takes on a platform that does not like nuance.
Yeah. So wonderful videos both of you make. I truly just am in awe of your art. Aranock, we're gonna start with you because you literally just premiered your
Yeah,
new video.
To date the episode.
Yeah, to date the
I
episode.
premiered it
To date the
like
episode. Today is the
2.5
day.
hours.
Today is the day Aranock premiered her new video, the work Bechtel should be known for, and
Yeah, like the
Doge took over Twitter.
But yeah, so my most recent video is a discussion about Alison Bechdel's Are You My Mother? I gave it a title that I hoped would give a little bit more clickies, you know? As a side note, I hate that we have to think about that. Like, we can't just make a title that makes the most sense or is the clearest. You have to think about what's going to get someone to click.
Yeah.
And I've definitely struggled, I think, to like give up that element and not be like, no, I don't need to click it. I'm the cool kid. No, like because for me, like it's it's a piece of art and I want to name it accurately, and I just kind of had to accept that like the title will be in the video and the name for YouTube will be what it is. So personally, the name is Alison Bechdel's Are You My Mother in the feminine subjective, but the title on YouTube is The Work You Should Know Bechtel For, which I don't think it's really an inaccurate representation of the video. The introduction talks about the way in which the Bechtel test isn't a real serious test, that a lot of people have really boiled down this queer artist to a simple single comic that she made in '85 that is a joke between lesbians, and that they don't really understand. And that was kind of the intro 2 minutes. The rest of it is just analysis of Are You My Mother and the complex relationship between moms and queer daughters and how you make yourself a subject as a queer woman and processing all of that. So,
Wow. So yeah, it just premiered like literally like an hour ago. Or 2 hours ago, or something like that.
Yeah, I finished
So-
premiering about an hour and a half, I think.
I haven't had the chance to watch it yet, but just everything you make is an absolute banger, so I'm sure this is no different. Everyone go check out all of Aranock's videos, basically, and her channel. That's an order, not a suggestion, or any sort of. And she freaking draws her own thumbnails. That's crazy.
I do, yeah, sometimes I do my own animations in the videos too,
Yeah.
but this one didn't really call for that. It didn't really work. So
Damn.
yeah, it was mostly
Harry.
stuff, but I think oh,
Well,
You, sir. You, sir. Are guilty of the crime of not liking a video game. Tell us
I
about it.
didn't like a video game, and I felt really bad about this, right? Because, like, I mean,
I love that you came. So for context, before Harry explains the video is, Harry came into the video essays Discord with, I need a vibe check
yeah,
on if I'm being too mean. And to be honest, the essay is the kindest, like, nicest thing I've ever seen.
today.
Like, explain why something is really bad. It was so polite about it.
So, like, you'll
It's
go
gonna be
into a
funny when we
channel.
talk about reaction.
So, like, you'll go into a channel, right, that is called Video Games Are Bad. And you will find only positivity. And on the one video that is being sort of negative,
It's not even that negative.
it's not even that negative.
It's not
It is the
negative.
kindest takedown. It is the kindest takedown. Like, you're not
It's-
shooting bullets, you're shooting like tranquilizers at worse.
Or like Nerf gun darts.
It's like walking by and giving your buddy a pat on the shoulder and being like, "Hey, that specific element didn't work. Bye." Like, that's the level of, it's so polite.
But this is just,
And-
it's such a contrast to me just writing out, going like, oh, I'm just such a terrible human being. What am I doing? Everybody's going to hate me for this.
So why
thinking
don't you
about the
tell
three
people
people that
what
have
the
developed this game.
was?
So, this is the thing, that our listeners are going to have to guess what this game is, leading up to me saying the words Terra Nil, which is the latest hotness in video games, at least before Judge came out. And it's a sort of, well, they call it a reverse city builder, but that's nonsense. It's not that. They just said that to sort of bump up the SEO a bit. It's a game where it's a city builder, but instead of building cities, you're rebuilding the world, I guess. So you start out on a world. You place down various cool machines, like machines to suck the toxins out of the soil, and then to irrigate the landscape and things like that. Eventually leaving sort of a nice picturesque world behind with lots of cool animals and different biomes and forests and things like that. The only problem is that it's bad.
All right. So, but because this episode's we're mostly to talk about like the process of making a video essay. But I think before we get to that, we should have a quick conversation about like what makes a game relaxing. What does friction do in a relaxing game context, and what the issue with? Because I feel like there's like a disconnect between some of your audience and what you said.
I sometimes get that, and sometimes I think like, am I not saying it properly? Who knows?
Which is weird, because I understood what you were saying, but I think the disconnect is that people didn't understand the point, which is that Terra Nil is a game built around a system that relies on friction, but it has no friction.
Yes.
And so there is no other draw to the game. It is a system puzzle, but the system has no real puzzle to it. There's all these numbers that are telling you how well you're doing, but they're kind of meaningless.
They're kind of meaningless, yeah.
And I think it's worth noting that it's a $20 game with 4 levels and then 4 like slightly
Full bonus
harder
levels, yeah.
bonus levels, which, and I want to be clear, I think short games are very valuable. I don't think games should be necessarily judged on their price alone, but I think when we talk about a game that is meant to be about systemically solving something to get a high score, when you can already basically get a near maximum score with minimal effort on a first run, I don't think the game is doing what it's trying to do. Because I don't think
it needs some more meat.
Well, I don't even know if it needs more meat. I think there's a dozen different directions it could go in. I think
Yes.
if you were to make it more of something like Power Wash Simulator, let's say, right? A game about cleaning up a space. Power Wash Simulator lacks friction. I mean, there is friction, but it's not in a traditional sense. The friction is the space isn't how you want it to be. Convert it to what you want it to be, right? Mm-hmm. But it's very minimal friction. And I think Terra Nil has that friction that would be good if it was working off of that, about beautifying a space. A good example of a game that does similar things with like systemic puzzle design of a space would be like Islanders, which is about going for high score.
Yeah.
Like Terra Nil could go in that direction. So I think there's a lot of directions it could go in, but right now it seems like it's caught between two very different games that don't mesh well. Is it a relaxing game without friction where you just get to enjoy experiencing something? Or is it a puzzle game where you try to maximize your effective use of a series of systems?
Yeah, I think there's one thing to note, that there's like definitely a difference between quote unquote difficulty and then friction. I think those are two different things. Whereas Terra Nil is a game that's definitely very easy, but that's because of its lack of friction.
Yeah.
It's like,
and you can't really use the biggest counter argument I've seen in your comments, Harry, is that it's supposed to be a relaxing, tranquil game. Which you talk about tranquil games in another video of yours, but it can't really use that excuse because it's built around being as efficient and optimal as possible, and that's not really relaxing. That's like you're meant to be thinking and maxim and min-maxing things.
I think you need to be doing at least something.
It's two different it's two different contradictory things.
Yeah.
And just to like really get across what we mean by there can be tension with no difficulty and there can be difficulty with no tension, right? Is tension with no difficulty would be like a walking sim type game with high story friction. So lots of friction. But there's no, it's not difficult, right? The mechanical difficulty isn't there, but there is friction for the player within experiencing the story, right? That is where the friction is coming from, and friction basically just means something is applying some level of emotional something to you, you know. So I think part of the problem is that a lot of people weren't approaching it with an understanding of some of the game theory behind what we mean by friction, and they were hearing it as difficulty.
Maybe.
I think that might be where some of the disconnect is. But I think this is interesting to discuss because creating is always this sort of conflict between saying what you want to say and dealing with the reality that audiences won't always understand that.
Yeah,
and
I
here's
think
the thing,
it's
that
very...
will happen.
Sorry, go on, Doctor.
That will happen no matter how clear you are.
Yes, you will always get... I had someone comment on my most recent video saying that they, like, wording it as if my editing was bad because their personal experience doesn't mesh with the style of that specific video. And it's like, some styles of communication are just not going to work for someone. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that's just a reality you have to deal with. And I think part of the problem is that when you hear someone say, "Oh, your work is doing this bad" or whatever, and I want to be clear that the comment was very polite. I'm not like annoyed at the comment. I think it was a very polite comment. I just think it really exemplifies this thing of not getting that just because this doesn't work for you doesn't mean it's a problem thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I think you
but
can
the
only
issue
serve
is
the
most
audience so much.
Yeah. So you kind of have to make a decision about where the line is. And, like, I think what I find odd about the response to Harry's most recent video is that so many of us were like, oh, yeah, that's a good position to have the line at. That makes sense. And then people just completely misunderstood it. But I think, looking back at some of the comments you showed us, I think it's a bit of a thing where they're hearing a game must have difficulty and it can't just be relaxing. They're hearing an argument they're used to hearing online, which is the thing of like, oh, walking simulators are bad because they're not difficult, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like that's not what's being said here. And
I
maybe
had
friction
that.
wasn't the best term, but
I saw that with the people. There was a tweet about the game that looked at a Steam review of it, and the Steam
Yeah.
review basically said the game's too short. And of course, everybody on Twitter kind of dunks on that Steam
Game
review because
developers hate that
we've heard that
discourse.
so many times, right? We've heard people
Yeah.
being
Well,
like, "I've played this so
as
much
I
in
said at the
the."
beginning of this conversation, length isn't a mark of quality. It's what you're doing with that length and why it's at that length. And
Yeah, but
I'll talk about that in the context of video essays in a bit. But like,
sometimes it applies. Sometimes it's just
Yeah.
true.
Because like the thing
Sometimes
is,
you
the game
need
is
to
too
have
short.
more.
the game
It's
is
too short.
The game is too short.
It's too short.
For the thing it is doing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, again, 4 levels in some games is a very reasonable length. 4 levels in a very simple, easy, systemic puzzle game, which is about solving environments, is too few. There's a lack of
Yeah.
variety because this game should be one that you're able to, like, personally, if it's a relaxing game in the way that the people want it to be, I don't think it is what it's intended to be, but what people want it to be. The imagined Terra Nil, as it were, of this very relaxing, chill game that they get to engage with. I think that should be a game that's replayable. And I know we keep comparing to other games, but I think it's kind of hard to talk about game design without comparison.
Yeah.
It's sort of an inherently comparative field due to the nature of mechanics and their evolutionary lines. Mechanics can be discussed basically in the same way that you would genetic evolution. Like,
Yeah.
the way that they... So what we tend to be doing when people do analysis of these types of things by comparing is that we're saying, I recognize this is from this evolutionary line, and I see this other game from the same line that's using the same style of mechanic, but it's working in this way in the way that it's not there. And, like, I think that what people think Terra Nil is or want Terra Nil to be is something like Islanders, right? A relaxing game where you get to interact with this environment for a little bit. You can come back to it whenever you want, But it has the puzzle game structure of, like, I don't know what the right comparison is, but like a Portal or something. There's a bunch
Yeah.
of levels.
Yeah.
And it's...
An apt comparison I've seen in Harry's comments is like, oh, it's more like a game like unpacking, where you fix up an environment, but like Terra Nil
Unpacking
is
is
if
interesting,
unpacking.
yeah.
Terra Nil is if unpacking had
a score.
a score at the end that told you how efficiently you
No,
unpacked your
you
thing.
you
But no.
didn't order the DVDs in alphabetical order.
It would
You
actually
failed.
kind of remove the majority of the message of unpacking.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so-
definitely.
Because the whole point of unpacking is that there isn't a right way to fix up this
Unpack.
room. So it's this thing where I think Terra Nil is. I don't think it's a bad game. I think it is a game that is trying to be 10 different things, and in the end is being none of them.
Too little of a game.
And so
Is what it is.
I think the problem is that when we say a game is too short, I think it's a too simple way of explaining the actual issue of the game.
Yeah.
Because I've played games that are 30 hours long that should not have been 30 hours long. And I've played games that were 30 hours long and were definitely too short. And it really depends on the game. It depends on the style of thing that is going for. It depends on what the progression is meant to be. It depends on the depths of the systems, and what it's trying to achieve for an audience. There are games that I've played that are designed to be 45 minutes long, and they shouldn't be longer because they fucking nail it with that length. There's a ton of short indie experiences that purposely play in short periods of time. Unpacking is
Storyteller is a
length.
good recent one.
Yeah, Storyteller is a recent one. I did a Game Jam game a few years back, which broke one of the major rules of Game Jam games, which is don't make a narrative game. But we made a narrative game. It was about 25 minutes long. It was exactly the length that it needed to be. It
Fuck you, Game Jams.
But we won. You know what I mean? So I'm definitely not someone that's going to say, "Oh, this thing is too short," because I've purposely made short games.
And you're also a video essayist.
And it's not too short because of the number of minutes. It is too short because of the nature of the systems it's trying to engage with and the things it's trying to provide for the player.
So I want to go back to the interpretation discussion because it's one of the biggest challenges when making argumentative video essays, like, videos that are meant to make a point and persuade to it, because no matter how clear you are, some people will misinterpret it or misunderstand it. And that's not like an insult to the audience or whatever. Usually, it's just the nature of how things are. No matter how clear you are, no matter how well you explain something. The biggest thing I had with this is with my Dark Souls video, which is my biggest one and the longest and most viewed one, where it's an hour long, and I've had a lot of comments where they think that I am against difficulty options and the easy mode. And if they come out thinking that I agree with the get good mentality of Dark Souls,
Finally, a video for the gamers. Let's go, Dark
they
Furry.
were not paying attention.
It's really funny to me that because you got two types of people being angry at that video. The people angry that you said the Get Good crowd were bad, and the people who somehow thought
Just like a 1-2 punch.
I think. Just to briefly touch on video games and difficulty, because I did a piece on that ages ago. But Dark Souls is a game with more difficulty options than any other video game I can think of.
Yeah.
None of them are explicitly called difficulty options, and that is the only difference. Because you don't slap a easy, hard, whatever mode on it, people don't see it that way. But here's what's funny. Everybody has a different view on what is easy and hard mode in Dark Souls. And it's the same people. They'll explicitly be like, "Oh, if you're using a dex build in this way, that's easy mode, bro. You're not doing it right." And unironically, those same people will be like, "You can't put difficulty options in Dark Souls." And I'm like, let's unpack those two statements coming after one after the other. Let's look at those two. What is not clicking here? It's because it's not called a difficulty option.
Yeah, here's the thing. For a long time, I thought that I had this because I had those comments. I had this regret in the back of my brainalizer, right? I was like, man, was I not clear enough? Did the video need to be even longer than that? Did I need to like? Did I just not communicate the ideas well enough?
They will never understand it.
They'll never
that's
understand it. They never wanted to.
Understand it,
Like,
Dogfight.
there's-
Dogfight.
that's a bit of a
Never
trap.
understand it.
No, but it is. I think it's a trap worth discussing, and we talk about process, and I'll get to like helping you not be misunderstood by groups you're trying to be understood by. But I think when I was early in my writing, I had that anxiety about being misinterpreted and being misunderstood, and it is freeing when you just accept you will be.
Yes.
Stop catering to them. Stop wasting your energy on people that aren't listening. Because someone can hear what you're saying, but that's not the same thing as actually listening to what you're saying and trying to understand it. And like not having energy for those types of people sometimes does mean that I'm going to, ignore someone that was genuinely trying to listen, was genuinely trying to, ask a question or whatever. But, and I think this is especially a thing for me as a trans artist, because I have to deal with the reality of I'm a trans woman that said something that is going to be treated as a political statement in a certain context. It is going to be used in a specific way, potentially against other trans people.
Yeah.
And so for me, I think there's definitely, and I know most women creators feel this way, there is a heightened level of that anxiety because we really understand like the consequences of our language potentially getting misunderstood. And it's a frustrating reality to just have to accept and realize, oh no, they're actually just looking for that. They weren't looking to understand. They weren't looking to listen. They were trying to find a way to misinterpret you in harmful ways. And to a certain degree, I will avoid making certain types of statements. I might reword a sentence or things because I know it could be reused by those. But I've learned to just be like, if you're clear enough and you assert yourself strongly enough on like, this is what I am saying, then you're probably okay. But the other thing is, and this is the most important thing, we talked about this with Harry coming in and going, hey, I need a vibe check on this, but work with other artists, work with other people, get feedback. If you don't want to be misunderstood, get feedback.
Yes.
If there is one thing that I think video essayists fail at most, and it's really noticeable when they try to talk about marginalized experiences they don't have, but like this pops up all over the place, is it's most noticeable in that context, but it pops up in all topics, whether you're just talking about video games or film or books or, your favorite sport. It doesn't matter what the topic is. If you don't get feedback, it will result in worse art. It just will. Like, objectively. And I want to be clear, feedback doesn't mean implement everything everyone says. There is a learning curve to understanding what feedback is helpful and what feedback is not helpful, and knowing who to get feedback from. But no feedback, you have failed at step one, in my opinion, along the process. So when I make a video, I get a feedback on the script stage, on the first edit, on the first pass of the script, second pass of the script, and the other thing that I think is really important when we talk about getting feedback in productive ways is don't just have people read it. There are contexts where that's a really good idea. Harry's video is a good example of having other people read it was a good way of getting the type of feedback that he needed for that work.
Yeah, just a simple vibe check.
Simple vibe check. But especially when you want decent feedback, deliver it. Deliver it to someone. Read your script aloud to someone, because it's going to be performed. And I think a lot of newer essayists don't realize the level of acting that is
For sure.
inherent to this
Absolutely.
medium.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had
Like,
a
I
tweet
think-
recently that that said, "Advice for fellow video essayists: you are also voice actors, and this is
I didn't want
This
to
is-
be, but here I am.
and depending on style, you're an on-screen actor as well. You know, and I think this is something that you intuitively understand if you're an artist and you're coming from it from like an art background. But there's a lot of people that come from it not from an art background, often from an academic background, or just they haven't done a ton of art stuff and they're trying out something new, which is fucking awesome. Try out new art, do new mediums. It's a good thing to do. It'll make you a better artist. But like, I feel bad because I'm like, what you've written is really great, but the delivery is killing it. I've had essays I've watched like that.
I think it's important as well that a lot of this stuff just comes with time. I think if anybody's listening and like wants to start out, you're not going to sort of come out of the gates swing. This is something that's going to take, I mean, it's like with learning anything. It's going to take time for you to figure out how to do it and how to do it in a way that, you know, works for you.
Yeah,
that you like
the old
doing.
the old adage is to make good art, you have to make bad art.
Yes. I've made a lot of bad art.
Same. Like, and I think like even my essays, like when I released my first essay, a lot of people are like, wow, like something. I'm like, yeah, sure. The thing that you are seeing is pretty good for a first outing. I don't super love my early videos, but it's pretty good for a first video from a channel. But that's because I've been doing art in so many different mediums since I was a little kid. I've made thousands of pieces of bad art before I ever tried to make a video essay. I'd made hundreds of bad essays, you know? Like, and like when I was in AP English in high school, right, in grade 12, the way that our grade 12 teacher got us to be good at writing essays, we wrote an essay every single week at least, plus long form essays on top of that. And those essays, you'd have 45 minutes. Just write it. Write a 5-paragraph essay. It's got to be decent. And the first while, you're bad. Like, the first while, you just are bad. And I'm not saying you need to write that many essays, or you need to be doing X amount. But the point is that make things, release them, get feedback, do better on the next one.
Exactly. Yeah. Like this shouldn't be to discourage people from doing it. This should be the opposite.
It's the
right?
opposite.
This should be encouraging people to just, you know, it doesn't really matter if it's bad. Just do it. Just do it.
It's okay. It's okay if it's not good. It's okay if 6 months down the road you go, I don't like that, I'm going to delete it. You know, that's okay. That's not a bad thing. You're not like breaching the rules of art making if you make a bad
The
piece
art
of
police
art.
are gonna come round and lock you up.
I'm just picturing like the vegan police from Scott Pilgrim, like personal. We got a 501. They made a bad piece of essay.
They lingered on this shot for a little bit too long. That's not allowed.
You've
God.
reused this song in an earlier video.
my early essays writing. If you wanna see quality change in like essay editing, especially like the editing of timing, watch my first video, and then watch Queer Relativity. And it's like, that first one is rough.
You might suffer from whiplash if you do.
Yeah, you're gonna be like, that's not even the same.
It's amazing, like how much. And again, this isn't to discourage people. This is to encourage people to do it. But it's amazing that you don't notice it when you start out. Like, and then you go back to it and you're like, oh, I did that wrong. Oh, that's not very good. Oh, why did I do it like that? Oh, I
'cause
sounded
you're
like that the
doing
entire
your
time. Yeah.
I didn't like that take. Oh, like, why didn't I re-record this line? Oh, that wasn't the best delivery of that concept.
But it's fine.
I wouldn't make this
Like-
argument now. My opinion is changed, and that's okay. Like, I think some of the beauty of art too is that it's a time capsule of a period of time in your life, you know? And sometimes that's painful to go back to. I definitely feel that as a trans person, like watching some of my early videos, I struggle to do that. I talk about that in Queer Relativity, but like a lot of times hearing my own voice makes me want to from that era, you know, yeah, makes me want to crawl under the covers and perish. Like just leave the universe. But yeah, like I think that's part of it is you know, we can talk about the nitty gritty of process, but the reality is that every essayist has a little bit of a different process, and that's what we're going to discuss across this entire podcast as we have guests on to talk about their specific experiences and process and things. But you're going to find what's going to work for you by doing. I think a lot of people have this like piece in their mind that like, I'm going to make this amazing essay. It's going to be the best essay. It's going to be so good. I'm going to come out the gate swinging with this incredible essay.
Gonna make a video that is so essay.
And they're constantly like chasing this sunset that's it's gone. Like it's you're not gonna reach it. You can keep running, but you're not faster than that, because the imagination can outstrip reality and run circles around it, you know? So instead of trying to make the video essay you always wanted to make 5 other ones that you like, that you think will be good, that you think will be interesting, and do them the best you can. And
the dwarf bread principle.
The dwarf bread
The dwarf bread principle. Yeah, go on,
All right, so again, this is a tweet I made. I'm on Twitter a lot. Is the
Too much.
is the lesson, and I need to
The Doge site.
change that. This is gonna be my character arc throughout the podcast. So I tweeted that I'm writing a script that is one of my first like really, really long scripts, because it's this really big overarching topic about the themes and politics of the Persona series. And it's also the first time that I'm very explicitly talking about politics in my channel. I usually just focus on game design. And I did talk about, like, stuff here and there, but this is the first time, like, I'm delving into themes and messaging, political messaging of a series. So I'm really struggling with it. I'm having a lot of trouble with this fucking script. So I thought I was like, all right, you know what? I just have like writer's block for this thing. I'm just gonna shelf it. And since I shelved it like a week ago, I have written 3 other full scripts.
No, it totally is that thing. Like, so I can talk. 'Cause I'm brutal with Dwarf Bread Principle shit. Okay, here is a list of essays I have publicly stated I would make that have not happened yet. A series of essays on the politics and representations of capitalism and gender in Alien, like the franchise. That has not happened yet. Mostly because every time I start writing it, I get really depressed about my government mishandling the COVID pandemic when I was a, pandemiologist researcher. I'm not a pandemiologist. I was the computer science side of the research, but I had to read so much fucking pandemiology papers and understand a lot of things around that, and then be disappointed. And then I worked on the dashboard for my province, and was more disappointed by the government. So every time I try to talk about Alien, which I know it sounds weird, it's like, why would... But my brain just can't separate them. And so that's just become my dwarf bread. It just sits in my drive folder, and I occasionally add notes to it. But, like, the other one that I had like that was my Matrix script, which I had wanted to make since I made my channel. So, just for context, I released The Matrix is Intrinsically Trans February 26th, 2022. I had wanted to write that essay since long before I ever made any essay. Okay? My first video was February 26th, 2021. So again, I'd had the idea for this Matrix essay for ages. I basically on and off wrote it for a year. And there was a 6-month period where I was trying to make it. And instead I made a video about Destiny 2, a video about Midnight Mass, a video about Black Friday.
The lesson here is... There's a lesson here, Darkrai, which is you'll get there eventually.
Yeah, I will.
You just need to make 10
really
more
good.
videos.
The lesson is
Also, we didn't explain actually what the whole dwarf bread thing was.
Oh, sorry.
For people who don't know.
I was like,
We're just
Darkrai,
like,
explain that.
there's some dwarf bread, isn't there?
Darkrai
Like,
just said no.
So, yeah, we've been talking about dwarf
working
bread
on a video
for
on
like
dwarf
5
bread.
minutes now. We haven't
Why are you
explained it.
talking about bread? Okay.
We're sorry.
I'm just gonna read the tweet that explained it to you. In Discworld, dwarf bread is magically inedible. It's so inedible that having dwarf bread in your backpack makes it possible to eat literally anything else. The Persona script is your dwarf bread.
That's a good tweet. Whoever did that did a good job.
At Towering Clam on Twitter.
Yeah.
Good job to that
just to
person.
give credit. And Discworld is full of incredible, principles. The Boots Grimes principle is a great one as well, which is, or the Grimes theory of economics, which is that a poor person buys a bad pair of boots and they wear through very quick, so they have to buy another bad pair of boots. A rich person buys one pair of boots that's expensive, but doesn't have to replace them for 15 years.
Yeah.
So the poor person ends up spending drastically more on boots than the rich person.
It's why being poor is so expensive.
It's not really about boots. It's about the general economics of being poor. Because when you're poor, everything's more expensive.
Yeah. I've wanted to read Discworld for fucking ever, and I went to a bookstore, and no bookstores in Cyprus have fucking Discworld books. I don't get it. I thought they were a really big and famous book franchise. They don't have it. I don't get it. Is Cyprus just that terrible? Jesus.
Maybe
an embargo on it.
or audiobooks. There might be some online that would be easy to access.
Yeah, I'll try.
I'll try. But to bring it around to the dwarf bread principle and creating stuff, I think it's really okay to just accept that some things will take the time they're going to take. You can just keep jotting stuff for them. Like I have a number of videos that are partially complete or somewhat complete that are good scripts. There's nothing wrong with them. I just can't get myself to finish them. I've been working on Ringo Bingo for like 2 years, which is, I know that name sounds weird. It's hard to explain.
Not the Beatles. Ringo.
No.
It's a documentary about the greatest filmmaker of all time, Ringo Bingo, the totally real Italian filmmaker Ringo Bingo. The definitely not weird inside joke between Lady Night the Brave and I that started in a charity stream before I ever made an essay. But it's really it's like a mockumentary. If you've ever liked like Christopher Judge's stuff, not Christopher Guest's stuff. Christopher Judge is the incredible actor from Stargate SG-1 and the new God of Wars. Christopher Guest is the best mockumentarian of all time. But it's sort of satirizing auteur theory and the way that film bros behave towards auteurs' work. It's fun. It's silly.
Yeah. So, message to all the listeners here. Look forward to my Persona video in either this summer or in 2025.
Next summer. Summer after that. I have a folder of and that folder is called The Pit. And that's where all the bad scripts go. They all go in there, and occasionally I look inside the pit and I find a script, and I'm like,
Does it gaze back?
that's actually pretty good. And then I bring it out of the pit, and then I make the video.
But that's the thing is, you should never delete stuff. Like,
Never delete stuff.
Never delete stuff. When I remove things from an essay, I often just throw them in a fucking pit folder as well. Like
The pit, it's great.
I don't call it the pit, but yeah, I have spots where I just like throw stuff in. Like I have just on my Google Drive a folder of scripts. Like here's some of the names. Okay, just to really get. Oh no, that's an actually finished one.
You know what? Let's do this.
Accepting
Let's do this fun little exercise with all of our guests. Just open the drive folder and tell me.
Oh my god! I didn't realize there was this many things in the pit.
Okay, I have
Jeez.
Accepting the Grime, a piece about like looking back at older queer representation and its messiness and finding joy in it anyway, and the way that like people want queer representation to be perfect and clean, and it just shouldn't be, and you should just kind of revel in the grime. I have Bionicle's transformation narratives. That will get completed someday. It just is going to take me a while, and my Patreon needs to hit a certain point for me to do it, which is because I'm covering the entire Bionicle series. It is the most trans book series to ever accidentally be trans. It doesn't intend to be, but
I thought that was Animorphs.
Animorphs tries.
There's a hierarchy
on
here.
another level. I've definitely just like disappointed 3 of my friends, particularly Lord Ravenscroft, by saying that. But genuinely, like Bionicle is ludicrously trans. And there's even just like funny things. Like for example, due to a printing error, Liwa was originally a girl, is a guy for the rest of the series, and in later reprints of the first couple books, they transitioned Liwa at the start of the story.
Hell yeah.
So there's like 1,000 like metaphors for transness in this series that are quite explicit, and gender is at best a superfluous gender, like it's a super superfluous construct in the context of Bionicle. People just decide to have pronouns. Like there isn't actually anything that's differentiating them as being different genders. They just are like, sure, why not? Like
fucking Bionicles.
And
what
they constantly
was gender?
like transition their bodies. Yeah, I have an entire piece about death and representations of it that's very good, but I also got too depressed about it when I realized that it was turning into a conversation about my Nana's Alzheimer's. And I was like, I need to leave that until I've dealt with those emotions some more before I try to write about them. Oh yeah. I have a piece about Dune and the different levels of what it's about. Homestuck healed my trauma.
Oh no.
That one will release next.
That's staying in the pit.
No, it's good. Okay. And look, Homestuck is one of the most flawed works of art ever made. It's deeply problematic. It's also, in my opinion, one of the most important pieces of pop culture and art in general of the 21st century. And I have a lot of good argument to back that up.
There's a podcast, I think, that's called Homestuck Made This World.
Yes.
And it's about that.
Anything that vaguely comes from the internet from about 2010 onwards is influenced by Homestuck. And if it isn't influenced by Homestuck, it's influenced by Undertale, which came out of Homestuck. Or it's influenced by X and Y writers that came from the Homestuck fandom. The Locked Tomb series, in my opinion, the best fantasy sci-fi series of the last, 30 years. Some of the best writing ever done. Tamsin started as a Homestuck fanfic writer. It is weird how much influence Homestuck has on art as it exists now in this age. And, yeah,
So
Oh yeah, yeah. There's so many. There's so many. Oh yeah. I have a document that's just called "A Parade of Good Boys, Good Masculinity in Films."
a parade.
I forgot that I wrote that at like 3 a.m. was okay.
Oh man,
my
all of these video essayists are really smart. Oh, look at that! Oh, there's a podcast where they talk about the creation process. They must say some really smart things. I'm gonna take a listen, see what they have to say.
So, speaking of, here are the titles of the 3 scripts I wrote while the Persona script was my dwarf bread this past week. I wrote these scripts in the past week, and I recorded 2 of them. The other one I'm gonna record like in a few weeks. It's not completely ready yet. But okay, so number 1. This script is called That Fucking Guy. That's just what it's called.
I liked that one.
Yeah, you'll have to wait to see what that's about. That video might even be out by the time this episode comes out.
I hope so.
So,
I mean,
yeah.
I don't know how much you want to reveal about it, but I read it and my thoughts were like, okay, he needs to get this out as soon as fucking possible. It's great.
And but by the way, I realized that during this podcast, while we were recording, I realized that the concept of that fucking guy applies to video essay comments as well.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, it's what we were talking about earlier. That no matter how clear you are, there's always that fucking guy who will misinterpret it. But yeah, that's what that script is
There's always
about.
that guy. There's always that guy.
The second script is called, and I love this one. This is called Danganronpa versus Mr. Beast.
This one's so good. I read this one as well. This one's so good. I need to just like I was like, yes, Darkfry. Sorry, because like, so I have this piece that I'm working on with Jesse Gender that we've been working on for a while. Hopefully it'll be out next month. We'll see how my life goes.
And hopefully this video will be out by then too.
I'm doing an entire animated short film for it, so that's gonna be a time. If you like Genndy Tartakovsky's Clone Wars, get hype. But I'm dead serious. But yeah, we have this entire piece about the monomyth and Star Wars, and we're using kind of Star Wars as a venue to talk about the ways in which neoliberalism justifies its existence by having like fascists around. Like it needs fascists to justify. It's a whole thing. Basically,
it's this whole thing.
Yeah, but the monomyth, the repeating story of the hero, all of these, it's how we tell stories about everything, right? And like really, as you described it, the hope propaganda of these things is built around that myth. And yeah, I just really liked what you had to say. It's good. I'm not gonna spoil it any more than that.
Yeah. The third one is called Chuck Tingle is my favorite author. Here's why.
Oh, I love
I've not
Chuck
heard of this
Tingle.
one.
He follows me on Tumblr. He's so nice.
I've been reading his books recently, and they are amazing, including I own 2 of them physically now. They came in the mail recently. The one is an anthology collection of sentient lesbian foods, and
Chuck Tingle's wild.
yeah. Let me bring it here so that I can read exactly the title.
It's not spooky. Look, he's just in the.
But yeah,
the listeners won't be able to. Oh my goodness! Whoa! Look at that.
You can see them. You can see my movements through the model. Right? So, it's called "Sentient Lesbian Food Gets Me Off: 8 Tales of a Edible Ladybug on Ladybug Love from two-time Hugo Award finalist Chuck Tingle.
Yeah,
That's good.
Featuring such classics as The Sentient Bread I Just Baked is a Lesbian and She Eats My Ass. My Macaroni and Cheese is a Lesbian, also she is my lawyer. And our special tonight is a salt-crusted shepherd's pie deconstruction served over slow-roasted turnips with green olive aioli and a side of your butthole.
That doesn't sound like a real thing. I'm
real.
not a
It
chef,
But
And they're all great.
Jokey titles aside, I am really interested in reading Camp Damascus, his recent
And
horror book, which isn't
the
quite
second
yet.
book I have is his horror novella Straight, which is like different than his usual epics. Just a horror novella where cisgender straight people become violent, blood-starving beasts, but in this book it only happens one night a year. Like The Purge, but
Just like
for
the
the straight.
Yeah.
So yeah, look forward to these 3 videos in the future. Maybe the far future, I don't know. The creation process is weird.
the
as we've
creation
highlighted.
process.
I haven't looked at some of these folders in a while, and I forgot about that I had notes on Tin Man, which is the sequel to Alice, which I did a video on ages ago, called Tin Man is fucking wild, and just the unhinged notes file. Oh my god, just. Most of the notes are me noting how Zooey Deschanel refuses to act. LK and I have a bet that she was probably unbelievably high on the set of Tin Man the entire time. Is the only way to explain why an actress as good as her turned it. And it's so funny because she's the lead and everybody else commits hard. Like, they are committing 110% to their performances. And Zooey Deschanel's just like,
Isn't there where she is?
yeah.
Like, Zoe, please, you're ruining the vibes here.
I'm trying to express like the energy of her delivery is like, hey, you guys are out of your tiny minds. Like, that is a line from the
Like, the opposite of Nicolas Cage. Where
it's like underacting to the funniest degree. I don't know how to describe. It's hard. It is Nicolas Cage energy. Like, I have a note in here
the
that's
opposite?
just Zoe lines galore. Alright, maybe someday I'll return to Tin Man. But the point is, there is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
I think I'll call
An
this
ungodly
episode
number
the
of
Dwarf
partially
Bread
completed
Principle.
scripts. The point is that just write, and like at some point something will click, and you'll get that push, and you'll finish it. And there is a certain point where you have to force yourself to finish it, for sure. But like, writing is work. I think people try to mystify art a lot, and I say this as someone who's very like, oh, I'm high artsy, whatever. But like, genuinely, it's just doing the work. Sometimes.
You
Yeah,
can
and
definitely
also-
like break it down into a process very easily if you
Yeah.
want.
Yeah. Finishing
But these
things
two
is a
works.
skill too.
Yes,
Like-
knowing it's done.
Yeah. Yeah. Just looking at it and being like, yep, it's done. Ship it.
I don't have
That's
this
a
problem
skill.
because none of
That's a
my videos
skill,
are
and
longer than 20 minutes.
Yeah.
When
That's
the
a
word
skill,
count
and
hits,
it's a very-
2,000, that's when I know I'm done.
Yeah. That's a skill, and it's a very relevant skill in game development too.
Yeah. And then, if I have one piece of advice for once you've done a first draft, kill your darlings. Murder them ruthlessly. Just
take them to the
gut
woodshed,
them.
shoot them in the back of the head.
Yeah, just like I get that you think your darlings are amazing. I get that you love your darlings. Kill your darlings. Kill them every time. Because, like, if it isn't serving the work in some way, it's not worth it. And I want to be clear. There's lots of things where you might be like, well, that's kind of superfluous to the primary point or whatever, but if it's serving the work, then it stays. That's my principle. And I probably keep it a lot tighter than most essayists. I don't think you necessarily have to keep it as tight as I do, you know? Which is saying because my videos are long, yeah, but
You can be long
I don't.
and tight.
But you can be long and tight, and they're the length they need to be. There's a reason why I have videos that are 20 minutes, and there's reasons why I have video that's almost 2 hours.
It's definitely something I've been thinking about a lot with writing, where it's like the concept of indulgence versus flow. Where, like,
Yeah.
how much do you indulge in something that's kind of for you and not for the audience?
I allow myself one tangent to video as a treat.
That's not bad. Yeah. No, I think again, there are times where tangents work really well anyway, like within serving stuff. There's lots of times where I put in shit that I know is just for me, but as long as it's still imparting information, providing an emotional valence change, imparting emotional information, moving between a section and another section, the transitions, things like that, then I include it. So, like, for me, jokes aren't just, oh, I'm going to throw in jokes because haha, jokes. Like, yeah, obviously having jokes is good. But especially because I tend to discuss pretty heavy topics and I want to draw out an emotional reaction from my audience, you know, the jokes are serving the emotional journey. They're serving that emotional valence. When I made my video on Midnight Mass, I had a graph of emotional journey that I wanted the audience to follow. So we start at high jokes and we go like this to the point where we have none, and it's very heavy and it's very dark, and
Yeah.
then we go on a straight, nice diagonal line up of increasing jokes as we finish the video, because I am taking you through this emotional journey. And that principle really helped me tighten up the latter half and improve the first half with more jokes. And the Midnight Mass video is very funny in the sections that it's doing jokes in. Like, I still love what's worse than a what was it? Oh yeah, what's worse than a vampire? A priest. No. Like, based on the thing of what's worse than a rapist?
A child.
I think that was what the joke was. But yeah, like,
That's a very
like
good
stuff
way
like
to
that.
go about it.
Yeah, it's just thinking about. I think the most important thing as an artist, no matter what you're doing, is intentionality. If you approach something with intentionality, it's going to be 10,000 times better. And if you don't understand why you did something, then you might be able to learn something about yourself as you examine that. Like, there are times where I realize, oh, I was messaging this by doing that, or after I've created a work of art, you know, not that I put much stock into certain types of psychoanalytics and stuff, but like I think our subconscious does, to an extent, express itself to some degree within our works, you know, as artists. So I think it's also worth just kind of examining those things. And it's like, well, why do I feel strongly about keeping this? What is it doing? Yeah. And then I usually put in like 3 to 4 jokes in a video that's just for me. I mean, other people might find them funny, but they're just for me. Like editing, properly keying out and editing it so that when Gandalf throws his cloak off, the sentence linguist. It's the dumbest joke in any of my videos. I love that joke. I spent way too much time on Gandalf's stupid cloak.
I'm very happy that in my most recent video, as of this recording, the effective difficulty video, people really appreciated the ladies, gentlemen, and those of you who defeated gender in single combat.
That's
line.
good. I like
Every intro, I have some sort of quirky description for non-binary people, and
Yeah, I was going to say
people-
there's an upcoming one, isn't there? I've forgotten what it was, but it was good.
yeah, it's in the that fucking
Dang.
guy script.
Yeah,
yeah.
I do it in all the intros, and people really resonated with that one, and I was happy because it's the one I'm most proud of. Jokes, how to incorporate jokes in video essays, I feel like is a topic that we can make a whole episode on,
Yeah.
and we will.
And I think we'll have to find the right guest for that.
have to find the
Yeah.
funniest person we know. Let's go down the list.
because you know,
It's an art form. It's a
yeah,
skill. There's an art.
It's an art form, and not to toot my own horn, but I get complimented on my humor a lot.
Your humor is pretty good. It's pretty fucking good.
So yeah, look forward to that. That's gonna be it for this episode. See you next time. I don't know how to do. I haven't figured out how to do outros. Fuck.
Okay, I'll
We
figure
didn't
it
get
out
this
next
far.
time. Hi, this was. Thank you so much for listening. This was Video Gems. You can find the links to our various channels in the description, depending on the platform. And make sure to subscribe and like and comment and come back.
Do the
next
YouTube
episode.
and podcast things.
Do the
Yeah, that's
YouTube and
gonna-
podcast things.
Yeah, I really fucked this up. I did not think
Make your
about the
videos
outro.
gems. Yeah, I guess to just finish off with a wrapping statement. Kill your darlings, make bad art, just release it, and get feedback, especially from marginalized people if you're going to talk about us.
Don't
Yeah,
play
That's
Terranil.
it.
Do if you want. It's
Harry never not hating Terran.
yeah. It's not.
I love Hater Harry.
It's not that bad. It's kind of bad.
Hater
It's not the
Harry.
worst game.
See you next
Harry
time. We'll
has
have
to
an
go.
outro
Bye.
next time.